Many people claim to believe in eternity and in afterlife, but I wonder how many people actually think about what that means and how long eternity actually is. So today what I wanted to do is I wanted to just kind of create a brief illustration to help us comprehend what eternity really means and how long that is. So let's imagine this. First of all, let's imagine, what is the long lifespan of someone? Maybe 100 years, or, let's imagine that someone lived to be 150 years old. Oh, it's great, great, great grandpa's birthday. We're going to his house, he's turning 150. Oh my goodness, that would be a long time. But for the purpose of considering eternity, let's imagine not 150 years, but much bigger years. Hey, imagine great grandpa is now turning 1,000 years old, or 2,000, or 10,000 years old. Now let's imagine, how about 100,000 years, or 1,000,000, or 1,000,000,000, or 1,000,000,000,000. It starts coming to the point where our mind can't even comprehend how big these numbers are getting. So in our mind, let's come up with a time scale for 1,000,000,000,000 years. Now let's take that timeline and then shrink it down for the purpose of this illustration of eternity. Let's make 1,000,000,000,000 years this little dot on this timeline. Now what would happen in light of eternity? Well, on this timeline, if this little spot right here was 1,000,000,000 years and every distance that long was 1,000,000,000 years, we could take this timeline and we could travel to New York. Then we could travel to California. We could travel to China. And we could go to the moon and we could come back with this timeline. Then we could go to the sun, which is really far away, and come back. Then we could go to the nearest star, which is very far out there, to the nearest star, and come back. And then, you know what, let's go to the farthest star in the galaxy with this timeline, which, with every little small distance being 1,000,000,000 years. Let's go all the way out there. You know what? Even that doesn't do justice in light of eternity. Let's take that timeline now, and let's shrink it down to this little mark right here. And let's begin it all over again, with that whole huge distance now being in this small spot. The point is, eternity never, ever ends. And once we consider how long eternity is, let's go back to how long 100 years is, or 50. That's almost nothing. In that timeline, it's like our lives are here one day and we're gone the next. So I really want to ask a question. If there is eternity, if there is an afterlife, do you know where you're going to go? Isn't that the most important question while we're here on earth? I want to read a parable that Jesus gave. He said this: the kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again, and then in his joy went and sold all he had and bought that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant looking for fine pearls. When he found one of great value, he went away and sold everything he had and bought it. The point is this: the kingdom of God. Jesus wants us to have a relationship with him eternally when we die. And there's two places. There's a heaven and there's a hell. And wherever you go, there's no second chance. Wherever you go is where you're going for eternity. And Jesus says it's worth giving everything for the kingdom of God. This life matters almost nothing. So the question I have for you guys today is, do you know where you're going to go? I'm going to talk a little bit more. There'll be a part 2 on this. But the question I just really want to leave with you right now is, if there truly is an afterlife and eternity, you going to heaven or are you going to hell? The choice is yours. It's something to think about.